Hi, I'm Maggie. Thank you for stopping by Crafts the Charm today. You are very welcome here. I noticed that there's some great Valentine's decor pieces at the Dollar Tree, and I thought it would be really fun to use them to make some wreaths. Let's go have some fun.
To start, we need a wreath base, and I'm going to use the same base that I used in my fleece wreath video. So you can quickly see how I made that here, but I'll link the video in case you want to see in a little bit more detail how I made the base. It's a pool noodle, and then it is this Sherpa fleece, which I purchased at Joann's. And let's start with the simplest wreath. Dollar Tree has these beautiful foam hearts that are covered with glitter, and I picked the pink ones. They also come in red. I loved this pink color, and originally I thought that I would probably paint them, but I really like this color. I don't really have much decor that's shiny or glittery right now, but as a child I always loved glittery things, and I just really like these wreaths. I love the shape of them. So what I'm going to do is use some matte Mod Podge and completely cover them with the matte Mod Podge. The back of them is also glittery, so I'm going to have to do the backs of them as well. And this is just to control the glitter. It won't impact the way it looks at all. I have tried other methods of controlling glitter, and I haven't had much luck with them. I understand that you can use hairspray. I don't really have hairspray. That's probably not a surprise. You've seen me. But the hairspray that I do have, maybe it was the wrong kind. But so I always use the matte Mod Podge. Now, once I had covered those with Mod Podge front and back and they had dried, all I did was take some straight pins and put them through the two hearts to connect them together in the middle. It doesn't have to be particularly strong here. So 2 straight pins did the trick. But if you wanted it to be really secure, then I would say glue them together or put something straight through, like a piece of wire. Now I also wanted to just pin them to the wreath. That's one of the advantages of the pool noodle wreath, is you can just pin things into it. So I took a few more straight pins and positioned them so that when I put the hearts over the wreath the way I wanted to, that they would press into the wreath, and then I used hot glue to attach those to the hearts. So they're sticking straight up, they're hard to see, they're dangerous, but soon it's going to be on the wreath. And where I pulled out the little hangers in the top, you could see the white foam through, so I just used a little red, white, blue, and a tiny bit of green to get a similar color. It's not going to be glittery, but the color matches well enough that it's really not noticeable, so I just painted those spots. Now I have this roll of silver ribbon from the Dollar Tree. It is a 9-foot roll, and I am going to use the whole 9 feet. What I decided to do is to make a bow. So I left a length, which is the length that I want of the piece that will hang down, and then I folded up the rest and left another piece to hang down at the other end, and then I used some silver florist wire from the Dollar Tree to tie that in the middle and tie it around the wreath. So that's our first wreath, extremely simple. Here's how it came out. Honestly, I really like it. Okay, and for our second wreath, I'm going to paint these color your own ornaments that come in an 8-pack at Dollar Tree. I have the 2 that are on the left. And I also have some smaller heart ornaments that come in those 2 different shapes, the rounder heart and the taller heart. And I couldn't find those on the Dollar Tree website, but I think they're simply called Decor. Now you could choose a nice traditional color like this beautiful red, which is called Imperial, or maybe this lilac, or maybe a pink. I just thought I'd do something a little bit different, so not necessarily Valentine's Day, but something fun with hearts. So I'm going to be using this Craft Smart Muted Aqua, and then I'm going to use these 2 Folk Art Home Decor chalk paints. The darker green color is called Grotto, and the lighter green color is called Cascade. And I've used these paints a lot. I really love these colors. So what I decided to do was to paint all the smaller hearts in the Grotto color. And you do need to paint the edges of these 2 if you want it to look nice. And I did paint both sides of the hearts, and I will explain why in a moment. So I did the smaller ones in Grotto, and then I chose to paint one style of the larger heart with the muted aqua and another style of the larger heart with the cascade. And the heart with all of the heart cutouts was of course the most challenging because I did paint all of those surfaces on the inside as well. So my idea is to do something that's sort of like stained glass, but instead of putting the color on the inside, I put the color on the outside. So you could certainly do this the other way and paint the hearts a more neutral color and then put whatever colors you choose inside as the stained glass. I just thought I'd sort of flip it. And I have these cutting mats from the Dollar Tree, and these are a little more opaque. They're a little bit more white than the ones that I've used in the past, which are clear. But I thought that was perfect because that means I wouldn't have to paint them white, which could end up giving us brush strokes. So I had traced out the hearts so that I would know what size to cut these pieces of plastic. And what we're going to do is double up the hearts and sandwich the plastic inside. Now the reason I painted both sides of the hearts is because you probably will be able to see a little bit of the heart that's on the inside. And I learned my lesson in the past, painting only one side, that you then have to go back and do touch-up paint, and I wanted to avoid that. So I am going to use the same process here that I used in the past with the snowflake Christmas tree and the snowflake wreath ornament. I'll link the Christmas tree video here. That's a very popular video. So the same process means I put these together so that they have edges that touch, and then I cut pieces of this 22 gauge florist wire and lay it between the pieces where they touch, and then I glue that down with E6000. Now once that's glued down, you could be patient and wait for it to dry. I don't, which just makes it a little bit trickier, but I have to be very careful here. I'm going to now glue the top pieces on using wood glue. Now, the little extra bit that we're doing this time is putting those plastic pieces in between. So you just want to be careful that the glue doesn't seep over the plastic, and you want to make sure you have enough glue around the edges so that the heart does stay glued together. So you might have to put a little bit of glue on the plastic to get it to glue together. Once that was all done, I put another cutting sheet over it and then put some heavy books on top and left it to dry overnight, removed the books in the cutting sheet, let it dry a little bit longer before I worked with it. So what I'm going to do with this and the wreath is put it to one side of the wreath, and then I'm going to put some ribbon on the other side of the wreath. Now this ribbon I bought at Amazon, and I had bought ribbon like this before at the Dollar Tree. I bought some in white and in green, but I haven't seen it there since. I think I got it in the florist section, but I'm not sure. It might have been the craft section. And I just love it, and I bought more for coastal crafts, but I think that it will work well here because the color goes with the blues that I have in the hearts. And it's nice because it has this sort of open weave. So I'm just wrapping that around the other side of the wreath, and then that is very easy to just pin in place. I also put some pins through the heart in the top, you might be able to see, to hold those onto the wreath. Now again, if you wanted this to be permanent, then you could of course glue the hearts to the wreath. I like the idea of a wreath that I can change out, and so I'm pinning things to the wreath. So I also put a little pin in at the bottom to hold that sort of heart tower at the angle that I wanted. And then I reattached my silver bow from the prior wreath over the blue ribbon on the right. And that's this wreath done. I really like this one too. And if you put it in a window or on a door with light, it does shine through that white quote-unquote stained glass portion. Now for our final wreath, I want to work with this cute little koala, and I am going to pretty much cover it up completely. I'm going to start by removing that heart, and I'm not going to use the heart. You certainly could use that heart, recover that heart with something else and use it, but I thought I would go a different direction with this, and you saw the thumbnail, so I think you know the direction I go. So I started by taping together a couple of pieces of scrap paper and tracing around the koala. If I were going to do this again, I would put the head on one piece of paper and then just do the body on another piece of paper because that's what I ended up needing. And then I put that over the koala and did my best to get the features of the koala, the nose and the eyes, the little insets of the ears and the feet, and I also did the arms, but I didn't really need the arms. So then what I thought is I'm going to do a fur belly, and the feet and the head I'm going to use a felt that I have. So I want the feet and the head to be elevated a little bit. So what I'm going to do is cut those out of cardboard. And this is just a corrugated cardboard box that I have. So I just traced around it and cut it with a box cutter knife. And I did that for the head and then also for the two little feet. Now I realized that you might be able to see some of that pink through the cardboard, you know, just if there's a little bit of a gap at all, you might be able to see some of the pink. So I decided to just paint around the edges of the koala, and that should help for glitter control as well, although this one didn't seem to be shedding glitter too much. And what I'm using here is Deco Art Americana Mississippi Mud colored paint. That seemed to come as close as I needed to come to the felt that I'm going to use. I did mix a little white in with that to make it just a little bit lighter. So once he was painted and dry, I took his sort of belly shape, including the arms, because I'm not going to put the arms over the belly the way they are here on the plaque. So I, again, used some of that Sherpa fleece that I have, but I do want to suggest an alternative. At the Dollar Tree, they have some fleecy, I think they're covers for mops that you could use, and they also have in the car section some they're fleecy cloths that they have. I'm not sure exactly what they're called. I used them in the gnome video for a hat for one of the gnomes, and they're not quite as fleecy as this Sherpa fleece fabric. They're not quite as thick, the pile isn't as thick, and they're more white, but it's certainly an alternative that you could use. Now for the head and the feet, I'm going to cover them with this felt, and I do like felt that isn't a solid color. I must have purchased this felt by the yard because it is longer than one of those 8.5 by 11 craft sheets, but I think that you could do this whole project with 3 8.5 by 11 craft sheets, maybe 2, not sure. So I'm just using white glue and I'm basically upholstering this. So my way of doing this is to put the glue down and then do opposite ends and then just keep going between those pieces that I've already attached and pulling it firm around the shape. So I did use a couple of clips there, but mostly I just used straight pins to stick this into the cardboard. And so glue, pull fabric, stick a pin, go between that and the next one, pull fabric, stick a pin. That seemed to work just fine. And I did the same thing with the little feet. Now for the centers of the little feet and the centers of the ears, I'm going to cut out some more of that fleece from my fleece scraps. And I'm also going to cut out the nose and the eyes, but not out of fleece. For the nose and the eyes, I'm going to cut that out of one of those faux leather pocketbooks at the Dollar Tree. I'm using black. These also come in tan and a pink, so there are a lot of options. I'm going for more of a like cute kawaii look for this koala than the look that the koala originally had. I don't know how well I do it, but that's what I'm trying to do here. Now for the arms, I'm going to make the arms come out from the koala's body. So I'm basically going to make sort of stuffed arms, but again, going to make them very, very simple. So going for that sort of cute look. So I just cut a little bit wider than I wanted because I'm going to turn them. So they're about 2.5 inches wide, and I just held them up against the koala to figure out how long I wanted them to be, but I think they were about 6.5 inches long, and I gave it a little bit of a rounded end there for the paw. And then I just sewed that, and you know, rather than get out my sewing machine and having to set that up, I just sewed that by hand, trimmed it and turned it inside out, put a little bit of fiber fill in there, and I did that for both arms. Now once the glue had dried on the head and the feet, I just trimmed the back of it so that it would be flatter. And then I thought we needed a little bit of feature definition, so I went back to that Deco Americana Mississippi mud paint, and I just painted some features on the koala. So I gave it a little bit of a smile. I painted where the ears connect to the head, and then just an outline of the whole koala. And I also painted around where the little foot pads are going to go and where the little fluffy ear inserts are going to go. Just to, I don't know, have a little bit of depth around that. I'm not sure how successful that was. You can tell me in the comments. And then finally I painted a little bit of light reflection on the eyes. I'm not sure if it's enough. And now we get to glue this little guy together. I glued the little foot pads to the feet and the ear pads to the head, glued the tummy fur down first, and then glued on the head and the feet. Now, before I glued the head on to the koala board, you notice that it has a hole in the top. I did slip a piece of florist wire through that hole so that I could continue to use that hole. Then I glued the head over it, and we're going to use that florist wire to attach it to the wreath. And then with the arms, I didn't sew the arms together at the ends. I probably should have, but I didn't. So I just glued them together and then glued them to the back of the koala and put a heavy book over the whole thing so that it could dry. Now, if you want the back of your koala to look good, if people are going to see both the front and the back of your wreath, I would recommend cutting another piece of felt that is the size of the entire koala and gluing that over the back of the koala. I didn't take that step because I don't plan on the back of this wreath being visible anywhere. Okay, so now I'm going to use that florist wire that I put through the koala and just going to attach it to the wreath. I find the silver is relatively invisible against a white wreath. And what do koalas love? They love eucalyptus, right? At least that's what I believe. I don't personally know any koalas, but I got these eucalyptus bunches from Walmart. I think they were around $2. And I also got these lamb's ear bunches. They were also $2, and I thought that was a pretty good deal for greenery. I love lamb's ear. I love the color. So I cut a little piece of the eucalyptus off for the koala to hold, and then I sewed his little hands together, and to keep them sort of flat against his body, I actually sewed down into that fleece that's on his tummy as well. And then I could just slide that little piece of eucalyptus in there. And then I cut off more from that bunch of eucalyptus and just sort of arranged it with 2 pieces of the lamb's ear across the bottom of the wreath. And I just wired those pieces to the wreath and to each other. And here's how the little koala wreath came out.
So what did you think of our 3 wreaths made out of Valentine's items from the Dollar Tree? Did you have a favorite? If so, please tell me in the comments. Or what would you have done differently? I'm always interested in your ideas. I think I really liked that very simple pink heart wreath. I loved the shape of those hearts, and I really do like simple things. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you enjoy this sort of content, please subscribe to Crafts the Charm. Thank you for spending time with me today. Take care.